So hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and as you can make out that today's video is going to be about how to build a lucrative resume. So I am going to give you some most important tips which you must implement to make your resume more attractive for the recruiters. So just think like that. You in a software industry or in any employment industry are like a commodity. Okay. So you basically have to sell yourself to companies so that they can pay your salary to get your services. Okay. And your services or your skills should be attractive enough so that they must hire you. The thing is that if you want anybody to hire you or even call you for an interview, you must have a resume that should get selected. So, without further ado, I will be discussing today some important tips, and please stay in the video till the end because I will be showing you an actual resume and mapping all my tips to that resume. So, basically, you will get a better idea. So guys, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for further videos, and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing in building a resume, the first thing you see is a heading. Okay, so basically what should be in a heading? In any resume, the heading should be the most important part, and it basically consists of your name, and make sure that your name should be in the biggest font. So whatever font you want to use for your resume, your name should be the biggest font size. Then it should have your contact information. So make sure that your contact information should not be in the end of the resume, but it should always be in the top of the resume, because if an HR wants to contact you or ask you some question, they should not be going through your entire 3-page or 4-page resume to reach your contact information. It should be on the first page on the top, and it should be readily available. The next thing is your LinkedIn profile. So if you are in a software industry and you are looking for a job, you must have a LinkedIn profile. And the link of your LinkedIn profile should be there in your resume on the top, so that if anybody wants to check it out, they should know where to go. And the last thing, this is kind of an optional thing. If you have any blog or any individual website which you have created for yourself, which can show your profile or your skill set or your freelance projects, you can mention that website URL as well. For example, you can give a URL of GitHub or Medium or any other profile which you have built. The next and important part is your career summary. So let me say this, that most of my tips actually apply to experienced programmers. So if you are an experienced programmer, then you must be having an experience in some domain. You must mention what domains you have worked on in your career summary. And you must mention the years of experience. If you have 8 years of experience or 5 years of experience in telecom industry or in banking industry, you must mention that as the first line of your career summary. The next thing is that if you have worked in a domain, for example, if you have worked in telecom and you have worked specifically with GSM or LTE or CDMA, then you can mention these domain specific jargons as well. These domain specific technical terms actually gives the recruiter some idea that what type of technologies you have dealt with. And for example, if there is a telecom industry a client who is looking for people to specifically work in their LTE project, and your resume has that keyword in it, then there are more chances of your resume getting matched with that job. And the last thing is that if you have some domain you want to work in, for example, if you want to work in banking industry or you wish to work in hospital industry or life science industry, then you can mention that as well. If you don't have any preferences, I would suggest to just mention that you are interested in working across functional domains. So that's a good thing for the people who are starting out as a freshers and who basically do not have any domain specific knowledge. They can mention this term that they want to work across functional domains without specifying any particular domain they are interested in. That comes out to be your career summary. Now comes the technical expertise. Now, I would like to tell you that this portion of your resume is going to consist of the maximum amount of keywords which are going to match you with most of the jobs. What this section contains is basically, if you are in a software developer role, then what all coding languages you have worked on. So basically, if anybody is looking for Java, Python, or any other type of language based programmer, if you mention that language in your resume will get matched to that job opportunity. The next thing in your technical expertise comes out to be specific technologies, web based technologies, or methodologies. For example, if you have worked in microservices, if you have worked in REST API, if you have worked in Docker, Kubernetes, so if you have worked in specific cloud based or web based technologies, please mention them as a separate bullet point. And the next thing is frameworks. So let me tell you that frameworks should always be separated from the coding languages. Most of the people, they confuse frameworks with the coding languages. So Java is a different thing, Spring and Hibernate is a different thing. They are frameworks based out on Java. So you must mention them as a separate bullet point. And if you have worked on multiple frameworks, for example, if you have worked on backend frameworks like Spring and Hibernate, front-end frameworks like jQuery, like Bacon.js or React.js, and you have worked on testing frameworks, for example, Cucumber or Qtp or Selenium, then you can separate them out as a separate bullet point. For example, you can mention front-end frameworks, blah blah blah, backend frameworks, and testing frameworks, right? So these kind of bullet point distinction actually helps the recruiters to easily check your resume and filter out those who are matching their requirement. If you fill up all the points, all the keywords, all the languages in one single paragraph, it actually confuses the recruiters and they basically have a tendency to reject that type of resume. Then if you have any database tools or languages, for example, SQL, MySQL, Oracle, or any sort of uh, database you have worked on, then please mention them as a separate point. And operating systems, definitely, I would recommend you to mention operating systems. Some people do not think that operating system is important, but I do think that if somebody is specifically looking for people who have worked in Linux environment or people who have worked in Mac OS or anything specific to operating system, it is very beneficial that you mention that in your resume because it increases your matching probability. And next comes the experience. So the people who are just freshers and they are starting out, they can skip this section definitely. But those people who have good amount of experience, they must do this section most carefully because this section actually validates the skill which they have mentioned in your technical expertise, and hence it is very important. So, whenever you are mentioning your experience, every company has to be in a separate partition. So, basically, in your work experience, you divide your resume into different partitions, and every partition will have some points. The first point of your work experience in your company should be your company name. Then it should have the duration of work. So if you have worked in that company from some year and some month to some particular time, please mention that. So month and year are very important. Designation and your role. Just be careful that you have to mention your designation as well as your role. The difference between both is that your designation specifies the grade level on which you have worked. So if you have worked as a senior software engineer, that becomes your designation. If you are working as a Java developer, that becomes your role. By mentioning your designation, you clarify to the recruiter that you were at a senior level, at a mid level, or at a junior level. And by specifying your role, you are actually specifying what type of skills you were working in. Then you specify the roles and responsibilities and your contribution to the different projects in that organization. You can separate out the projects as well, but if you do not have worked on many projects in that organization, then basically you can compile them just as a separate bullet points. The important thing, the key word here is individual responsibilities. What individual responsibilities mean? That you do not have to describe the project and just be done with it. No, if you have worked on a telecom project, for example, like you worked on some website, do not just mention what that website was about. Please do mention what you have done in that website. So if you have done the backend configuration part of that website, then mention that you were responsible for creating an entire backend of a website development project, right? Just mention that what you have done, because that is what is important to the recruiter to see. The next point is project value mapped with the company revenue. Why this thing is important? For example, if you worked on a project that resulted in an increase in the company revenue by 10% or by 2% or by 1 crore or 2 crore or $300 million or any particular amount, by mentioning that amount, you are actually telling the recruiter your worth, your value in a numerical format, and that value turns out to be a really good division to the recruiter. It comes out to be a really good mapper. They can really make out that yes, this person is quantifying his work. This person has really some sort of value providing capability, and that really matters a lot in recruitments. Hence, whenever you are mentioning the project, also mention that how much revenue that project generated or how much turnover that project got to your company. The next thing is key achievements. So while working in that organization, if you have came up with some innovative solutions, if you participated in some hackathons, if you were keynote speaker in some conferences, if you got some patents, please do mention them as your key achievements, because they also play an important role and they actually are hidden gems in your resume. And the last thing in your experience comes out to be the awards. So if you have got any recognition in your organization, for example, if you got an on the spot award, if you got a service award, employee award, or if you won any hackathon, or if you won any kind of recognition in your organization, please mention that as awards. So experience was just the most important part we covered, and the next thing is certifications. So certifications basically, pardon me the spelling here, I'm sorry for the spelling mistake, but certifications basically some people think are not that important to do in case of softwares. I do agree with it. Certifications are not important if you know your subject very well. If you are not having a certification, that doesn't matter. You will still go for the interview and definitely you will get selected. But the problem is that sometimes you do not even get the call. So if you want your resume to get selected by the recruiter to at least call you for an interview, then you must have some keywords specified in your resume, and certifications play a significant role in that. For example, if you have done a Java certification, if you have done a Python certification, and people are looking for a Python developer or a Java developer, those certification mentions actually validates your skill a lot, and it just increases your chances, and it kind of also increases the number of keywords in your resume. While mentioning a certification, there are certain points you must take care of. The first thing is your skill relevant certifications only should be mentioned. So for example, if you have done a certification in jewelry designing, but you are applying for a job of a software developer, will that certification really hold some value? No. So only mention those certifications which are relevant to your skill set, and always start them from the latest acquired certification. So start from the latest and go till the oldest or the earliest acquired one. You have to specify the name of the certificate, the issuing authority, and the validity of the certificate. So example, in case of Java, your name of certificate will be Java Certified Developer. The issuing authority will be Oracle, and the validity of the certificate will be when you acquired the certificate and when it will expire. The next thing is education. So if you have not done any certification, it is still optional, but definitely you must be having some sort of education behind yourself, be it be post graduation, PhD, graduation, or could be just high school. While specifying your education degrees, always start from the latest, and just like I mentioned before, mention your course name, your university name or college name, and the duration of your course. Okay. So once that is done, it pretty much forms your entire resume, and after education, it should be the last part. But if you want some extra credits, or if you have some extra credits on your name, it is worth to mention them. For example, if you have done some individual projects in your free time, if you have done some freelancing work, if you have created some POCs which are just on your GitHub account, or if you have contributed to some open source library, do specify them as a separate point, as some individual contribution point in your resume. If you have some patents acquired, if you have some white papers published or some articles published, please do mention them. They do hold quite a significant amount of value. So guys, these were my tips, and I hope you kind of got some idea. But to make sure that you actually understand more about it in a more holistic way, I will show you one actual resume. So basically, you can see that this is a resume just like I explained before. The name is in the most highest font weight here, and it is also bold. Then we have our LinkedIn URL, our Gmail URL, contact information, phone number, and your GitHub link or any other link you want to mention. The career summary includes a number of years of experience, the domains in which he or she has worked, and if they have enthusiasm with some technology or with some functional domains or with some technologies, then that is also mentioned. So basically, the things you wish to work in the future. And finally, we have the technical expertise here, and you can see that everything is mentioned as a separate bullet point, be it with web technologies, frameworks, languages, or if you have some miscellaneous categories, you can mention them also as a separate point. And the important part comes the work experience. So you see we have company name here, the duration, the designation and the role, and the roles and responsibilities in the project work with an actual value in the quarterly revenue of the company in a particular year. So as I told you, we are basically quantifying our worth to the project. And after these roles and responsibilities, we have mentioned key achievements and the awards acquired in the organization. The similar structure is for all the companies we have mentioned in this resume. Then comes some projects. So if you have some individual contributions or if you have some freelance work, do mention them as a separate point, as a separate partition in your resume. And with a just simple one line could be enough, but you definitely have, you can definitely elaborate it if you want to. Then comes the certifications and the education part. So every certification is mentioned with its name, issuing authority, and the duration. And education is also mentioned starting from the latest, going to the oldest, and properly in the same manner as we have mentioned certifications. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video and you got some useful tips. I will be sharing more tips soon in my other videos as well. Till then, please subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned, stay safe, and bye bye.